So I understand from that there was this idea that you've had from, it's kind of been pushing through about the usefulness of data. You connect this to a social dislocation that's taking place not only in the US, but in many places due to the sorts of information flows that we're being exposed to. You throw into that mix now a pandemic or a sort of a fundamental risk to economies and the way societies are set up. And all of a sudden now we have a problem of trying to figure out, like, how do we actually help solve those risks, right? And then how do we help organizations bounce back from those risks? So yeah, talk to me. So that was sort of the genesis of these coming into these areas for you. And you've now created this OTTRSK, which is doing what? Tell us about what the way that you're trying to solve this problem and what it's going to try and do.
I'm interested in the economic catastrophe that follows the initial catastrophe, if that makes sense. That's what's been called out by this recent crisis, the current crisis. There's an event, a global health event, or a civil action or a strike or a riot, or a natural catastrophe. And small or large, there is an economic catastrophe or an economic follow-on. It so happens that in the current instance, it's the largest ever, which presents all kinds of other problems regarding where do you get the capital and who participates in this. Putting that aside for a moment. So I haven't been thinking about insurance per se. I'm not approaching this like an insurtech person. I'm interested in measurement of facts on the ground and ideas and predictions and managing risk around that. So that's led me to the insurance or reinsurance space, because I do genuinely see an opportunity for the industry to offer mechanisms for resilience in a way that can be incredibly important and meaningful now and in the future. At the very moment where insurance should be serving its greatest purpose, it is inevitably and necessarily having to retreat because there isn't the capital. So there's a huge gap, and everyone's expecting the government, as they are in the UK, to come in and backstop. And that's a real thing to do in an emergency, but that's not sustainable on an ongoing basis. So I do think with the current project, I think understanding or comprehending and predicting or measuring how those risks are trending and how they may or may not lead to a large-scale economic catastrophe or dislocation, which, by the way, would be sort of a parametric framework for discussing things like BI or non-physical damage business interruption. I think it's really important that we inject that into the conversation.
Yes, very true. So let's pick up the because you talked about some really interesting things there about sort of the catalyst of OTTRSK. Then you talked a bit about the sort of the way that you were kind of doing the parametric triggers, and then we talked about the economic dislocations left to the market. The future of reinsurance, insurance pricing, and parametric products seems to be how you're looking to sort of address some of the issues that we're talking about with these major economic dislocations. So let's talk about parametric triggers, and so how parametric solutions can support this sort of the solution and be a potential way to solve that problem, and how your data gathering is all about, can empower these parametric triggers potentially as a solution. So can you tell us about your thinking around that, please?
Here's what I'd say. I think in this case, if we look at the current crisis, the urgency of relief is really apparent. People need a payout if they're a business holder, and they need it right away. In the U.S., we've made an attempt to send capital or paycheck, send via the PPP program money to business holders as quickly as possible, but it's taking weeks and weeks and weeks, and a lot of businesses are going insolvent as a result of that. So the attraction of a parametric solution is that it's clean, it's immediate, and it can sustain people during a really disruptive event. So that I think that coming out of this, I think the insurance industry if it hasn't already embraced with both arms a parametric product and how that translates at the retail level. I think we'll see that. And I've made a career of pissing off people who actually have real experience in industries. So anyone out there who thinks that don't know what I'm talking about, or I'm not qualified to have an opinion, I agree with you. I'm not going to argue. I did this with premise with economics, like where I just, I'm not an economist, but I play one on TV. I don't have insurance industry expertise. I have technology industry expertise for sure. So I'm not so humbly offering the approach we're building as potentially a tool in the kit to help get arms around what the risk is, how to identify in the world now certain trigger points or triggers that could serve to measure and enable the pricing and transfer of risk around these types of dislocations, and help enterprises or reinsurers predict when there is an increasing likelihood of those things happening.